Hey there, my friends. Today I am talking to you all about taking your thoughts captive. So this is a verse in the Bible, and this is something that I've thought a lot about because I really want to live my life intentionally. I want to live a life that is pleasing to the Lord, and part of that is, and actually not just part of it, but all of it starts with taking our thoughts captive. So I heard a lesson on this life coaching and thought work, and I wanted to share it with you. So this is what it said. It said, your thoughts determine your feelings determine your actions, and your actions determine your outcome. And circumstances are completely neutral. They are not part of this equation at all. So that means that your outcome, the actions that you take, the thoughts that you think, the feelings that you have are all separate from the circumstances that you actually have. So we do a lot of this work in the Thriving Mom Club, and I've had ladies ask me, how can circumstances be neutral? How can you even say that? So it is all about this idea of taking thoughts captive. And I want to give you an example of Joni Eareckson Tada. When she was a teenager back in the 50s, I believe, she was swimming in Chesapeake Bay, and she thought the water was deep enough, and she ended up diving into the water, and she hit her head on a rock and broke her neck. She was paralyzed from the neck down, and she was in rehab for 2 years, and she really just doubted her faith. But through changing her thoughts into the thoughts that God had about her, she was given the assurance that God allowed her accident for a reason. And now she paints pictures with her mouth. She puts the paintbrush in her mouth, and she speaks on a global level. I was actually at a conference that she was supposed to be at, and she couldn't be there, but she spoke to the ladies at the conference over like a Zoom or a FaceTime, and she was such an inspiration to me because throughout all the circumstances of her life, she still was able to have a different outcome. So the circumstance of her being paralyzed from the neck down was completely neutral. It had very little to do with the outcome of her life. And so why can I say that? It's because it happened in her life, yes, but it was her thoughts about the circumstance that ended up determining her outcome. She took her thoughts captive, she made them obedient to Christ, and because of that, her life took a completely different route than maybe it would have if she had had different thoughts about the situation. Joni could have allowed the chronic pain that she had and still has actually, and just the overwhelmingness of her situation cause her to shrink back into isolation, cause her not to live out God's purpose for her life. But because she took her thoughts captive, her circumstance had less of an impact on the rest of her life. Now, there are a lot of circumstances that we can't control. There are a lot of things in our lives that we can't change. But if we focus on what we can control, which is our thoughts, our feelings, then we can begin to change it. So let's give a really simple example, and this is something that I have shared before, but this is such an important work that we need to really be disciplined in our walks with the Lord, because the word says over and over that we need to make our thoughts captive to His word. And it's not just about our thoughts or what we think, but it's about aligning them to what He says, to what God's word says. And that makes all the difference. So I had a very small situation, a very small circumstance that I used this in recently, and I wanted to share it here. I love the Walmart pickup. It is so convenient for me, and it makes my life so much easier. And the other day I scheduled a pickup between 12 and 1 o'clock. And I thought, church gets over about 11:30, and they usually text me about a quarter till my time so that I can just go pick it up right after church. That way, if we get talking with someone at church, no big deal. I'm not late. I can just go pick it up right after that. I was ready to go. Church was over. We were chatting with some people, and I still hadn't gotten this text message about my Walmart pickup being ready. And I thought, well, maybe they forgot or something. I don't know why I thought that, but I went ahead and went to Walmart anyway. And when I got there, they said that they were running behind and that they didn't have my stuff ready. So I decided to leave, and I thought I would just come back later. That was about 11:50, and they said they were really running behind. So I went home, we made lunch, and I got a text message about 12 or a quarter to 1 saying that my groceries were ready. And as I was driving to Walmart to go and pick up my groceries, I decided to use this thought work. So I decided to make sure that my circumstance was that the Walmart pickup wasn't ready. My thought originally had been, this is so frustrating. And that thought led to the feeling of frustration, or maybe just not angry, but just frustrated. Okay, so now as I'm driving back to the Walmart pickup, I decide to completely change my situation, even though the circumstance wasn't going to change. So the circumstance was still that the Walmart pickup was later than I expected, but instead I decided to change my thoughts. I decided to make my thoughts obedient to Christ, and I decided to start thinking that that woman probably had a very long, busy day. Everything was behind, and just because it seemed like a little bit more inconvenience for me didn't mean that I had the right to be rude to her. So that led to a feeling of compassion for this woman who has probably been working her tail off all morning trying to get all these groceries done. So once I got to the Walmart pickup line and I pulled into my spot, I got out, I told her thank you, I helped her put my groceries in the car, and I told her later, I just want to say thank you because this makes my life so much easier having this. And she told me, you are the only person that has said thank you to me all morning. And I thought, the circumstance didn't change at all. The circumstance was still that the groceries came later than I expected them to be, right? But my thought changed my feeling changed my action, and my action changed the outcome, my results of it. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. We can start to take our thoughts captive. That's why this is so important work. Now, in the Thriving Mom Club, we talk a lot about this, and we do a lot of this kind of work because it's so important. Your entire life can change whenever you take your thoughts captive to what God's Word says. This is so true. I want you to know this. This is why I have developed the Thriving Mom Club. This is why I go it over and over in the Thriving Mom Club about this, because it is so important. Whenever we start to take God's Word and apply it to our lives, that's when our lives completely change. That's another reason why in the Thriving Mom Club there's a Bible study that is offered every single month, because I know that I need God's Word in my life. I can't just take any book that's out there. I can't just take anybody's advice out there. I need to have God's Word speaking into my life daily. That is where you are going to see your life change. That's where you're going to see your motherhood become more of an adventure, and you're going to be thriving in your motherhood versus surviving in it, because you know that it's not the circumstance of your life that determines the outcome, but it's the way that you think about it and how you take your thoughts captive. God has given us some powerful truths in His Word. And so whenever we begin to take that and not just hear it, like James says, he says, don't just hear the Word and deceive yourselves. Do what it says. So it's not just about knowing it, it's not just about hearing it, but it's about applying it to your life. And so this is something really simple that once I started learning how to do this kind of work, it really changed the way that I lived my life, because I realized I can change my feelings by what my thoughts are. And it's not really someone else that made me angry, but it's the thoughts that I had about a situation that made me angry. And then once you take that back and you take that responsibility back on yourself, that means you can change it. That means you can go to God's Word and learn what you're supposed to do and learn how you are supposed to feel, because your thoughts are changing. So it's super important to take your thoughts captive. If you have a situation in your life and you're just wondering, man, I really don't know how this works, how it would work for me. I don't know how this circumstance isn't, or how this feeling really is not connected to my circumstance at all. If you're not in the Thriving Mom Club, make sure to get in there. You can join, you can start today, and you get access to all of the lessons, but I talk in depth about this process, and I talk about how the circumstances in your life, whenever you filter them through God's Word, it can change your feelings about the circumstance, it can change your actions and the outcome that you have. So if you haven't joined there, make sure, at the very least, make sure that you're part of the Girl of Grace group. I will leave links for both of those things below so that you can check them out, and I will talk to you guys next week.